You've reached Can I Call You? How can I help?
I need help. Is my relationship in trouble?
Can I call you? You've called 8 times. What is going on? Hi, you've reached Can I Call You? How can we help you?
Welcome back to Can I Call You? I'm Emma Bates.
I'm Charlotte Palomino.
And I'm Eva Goicoechea.
All right, so what questions do we have this week?
Well, this week...
What have people called in with?
We've had a number of callers that really I just want to talk about kids. So I thought that we could discuss...
It is kid season.
Kids in a number of different formats.
Yep.
So we're going to be discussing like deciding to have children. We're also going to be discussing relationships between your parents or between your partner and their parents. And so I thought with the first one, we could start with...
How do you decide if you want or don't want to have kids?
Well,
I've childless women, I think we're well positioned.
I'm trying to have a baby.
Yeah. Okay, there we go.
I'm like shooting for the stars here.
Okay.
So, because in New York, having a child is basically demanding to be bankrupt.
It's true.
And it's extremely stressful. Everything in New York is stressful. And then you just add an extra layer because you are basically doing college admissions from the point of the child turning 2.
Zygote stage.
It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot, literally, like at this stage. But the way that I chose to have kids was I saw my partner. We talked about it.
Like, I want to be your baby.
Well, I definitely want him to be my baby daddy. Is that the term?
Yeah.
Is that what the kids say? I was like, I would like him to be my because we're not married, and that's not. We'll see on that front. But from the children perspective, I was like, oh, you'll do some of the work. I grew up in a household that was very untraditional, where my mom
Baselines. I love this baseline standard.
Oh,
You look like you might
but
help.
I actually would disagree with that. It's not the baseline standard.
I know.
It's actually a new standard.
It is a new standard.
It's a new
Yeah.
standard. And so, but I grew up with unrealistic expectations because my mom worked, my dad worked, and my dad actually took care of us a lot when we were kids. Like, he's the one who worked from home because he was a salesperson. So he had, for a wine company, so he had more flexibility. And so he would make dinners, he would
Did
clean.
you always want kids?
Never.
That's what I
I find them
fascinating.
expensive, and no, actually, I'm not going to lie to them. I'm not going to lie just for to be liked. I don't love children.
I don't either.
I don't love children.
Nope.
I think some of them are
We're
fantastic.
actually going to turn the show into the we don't like.
No, but do you want to know what it actually is? I don't love every person, so it's wild to be like, I love all kids. It's like, well, no, I don't love everyone. I love some kids. I think some kids are dope. Like I meet and also then you get biased because then you meet your sister's kids, and my sister has
like your
4.
best friend's children.
Some
of
but
them, not all of
my
them.
sister has 4 children, and I'm like, they're all geniuses. They're all perfect. They all can ice skate at a very young age. They live in Canada.
Maybe they are perfect.
It's impressive.
Yeah.
Okay, but so all of this said,
One of them did a jump and a twirl.
like, did
you're
you
like
have
all
a
this said,
deciding-
you meet these little nieces and nephews, and then you're like, I want kids. Or
No, that
tell
was
us
birth
about this
control.
moment.
That was birth control. It was so much work. And so because I was starting my own business and because most of the men that I dated, I was like, I'm taking care of you. Am I going to add another child to the situation? This just feels stressful. But now I'm in a relationship where this man actually does take care of me in many ways. And so
Did you like wake up one morning and you're like, I think I want kids with you?
no, maybe one day I'll tell on the pod what happened, but there was a very personal situation that happened early on in the relationship, and I just realized he was a responsible, very decent, very good human. And so I was like, you know what? Like, I could do this. And now 2 years later, here we are. So it was a process, right? Because he's younger than I am. I'm 38. For those wondering. And so I say it all the time on the internet, so it's not really a secret. And so, there's also the clock. I don't really feel like doing IVF if I can avoid it because it's just expensive. And I'm already about to get myself into debt with children. And so, yeah, I realized with him, I was like, oh, I'm not deluding myself into thinking it's going to be fun, but I'm like, I could have a family. I want to have a family with this man, which is a weird thing because I've never felt that before with a man. Normally, a man was like, what do you think about marriage? And I'm like, to you?
I mean, fair.
And then
I
we
think
break
it's a good
up.
thing. It's like, do I,
Oh, I should have asked that question.
how do you? I mean,
How do
you've
I
been
think
with
about
Alex
it?
for a while. How do you think about kids? And you're in your young 30s.
Yeah.
Your eggs are still fine. They're still like dancing around.
They're still with us.
They're not withered raisins.
still in the
Right.
They're still present. I just have never felt maternal.
Yeah.
I have never seen a baby, and I don't think this is the sign of feeling maternal where you see a baby and you're like, I want a baby.
I think people do.
I feel that way about dogs
But
and
I think
Grogu.
that's a misunderstanding of the concept of feeling
Yes.
maternal. I feel maternal towards I like caring for other people.
Yeah.
Or I like caring for my friends or like animals, or it's not that I don't feel like nurturing towards other beings. I just have I've never been like, I really want children like as soon as possible. And I think actually like the more I've grown, like my independence and like career and everything, like my appetite for them has got less and less and less. That being said, if I like picture myself in the future, I would like a family. Like I'd like a sort of, and not like a family of, I think a family can come in all shapes or sizes. I just think I'd like the idea of like having older kids kind of thing.
So you could adopt like a 15-year-old, expedite the process.
Maybe.
Well, it's also like stability. I was not financially stable until 2 years ago.
No, I mean,
and so
I'm still
it
not,
actually
so-
wasn't. And that's the thing. I was like, this is not fair for me to try and add this additional economic stress. I'm gonna. I'm. Who knows? Like, I don't know. I grew up in a household that was very intense emotionally, in the sense where it's like you were critiqued, you were expected to, obey. It was extremely old school authoritarian household, but it's because my parents were working their asses
where
off.
we are now.
They were stressed.
In life. In the
Yeah.
world.
And I was like,
think
wow. And I see these like non-stressed parents, and I'm like, I want to be that.
No.
And they just have 3 nannies, which is also kind of a vibe.
I
Literally.
never
Outsource.
never wanted children.
You have a
Actually,
dog.
that's not true. Well, the story goes that I was 9 years old and my mom was like, you're going to be a big sister. Ian was 10 and his little brother came out of nowhere. And I think we both were traumatized by having to change diapers and seeing from a very young age, like what it took, but also an age of now, our brothers are 5 and we're 15 and like it's a lot. And being married so long, people were like, well, first we got married a year after meeting. So people were like, you're definitely pregnant. No, I'm a child. I'm not pregnant. And then
Teen bride.
a teen bride. No, I was a 27-year-old bride, which I still think is a
still
teen
feel
bride.
like- I feel like I'm going to be a teen mom.
That's
but
a teen bride. And then I think it just never popped up. However, to your point, I've had dogs since I was 20. I'm 42. That's a really long time. I changed diapers already because I always adopt older dogs. And I think it's like a funny reconciliation to be like, I am maternal. I go home at a certain time to be there for these dogs, and I love animals. You've seen me. You can't walk down the street with me without me like throwing myself at some dog. But
can't
I've
walk down
never
the street
wanted
together.
we can't. But I've never wanted children. I don't find that it defines my existence at all, and I actually have never felt the pressure from anyone.
I feel like now is a good time to bring up witches. So I love this book
Love
in
the
defense of witches, and she says something that literally burned itself into my brain, and it's that there are, like, obviously she's generalizing. There are women who should be mothers.
Yep.
There are women who should be
Witches.
around children, like aunts essentially. And then there are women who should be nowhere around children and nowhere near children. And if you do not actually make your decision based off of what you truly want, you're going to end up creating a really bad environment for kids. Because historically, not all women had kids. Like there were this very narrow idea that like, oh, you're capable of housing a child in your body, you must do it. That is something that is a more modern invention. And so, yeah, I could go a lot into like the church because I'm obsessed with the church. It's like first big business. So as an entrepreneur, I feel like I have some things to learn.
Oh, on Easter weekend, we could go into this. No, but I think what's interesting is the second one. I've always felt like an aunt. I'm actually a great aunt, to be fair here.
Yeah,
I have
being an aunt's so fun.
I'm an aunt, and then they had kids, so now I have like 20 levels of nieces
Auntery.
and nephews. Yeah, but and my brother's so much younger than me that I feel in some way like I'm gonna get another generation because I have much older brothers and a much younger brother. But I wanted to be a teacher. I really like teaching kids. I like being around them, and then I want to send them home. And I don't want to hear from them. Like, I love that.
And that's beautiful. Like, what a beautiful thing for kids to have, like a network that's not just their parents.
Also,
and if
it's so
everyone's
fun
parents,
to,
they don't
like,
have time for other
totally.
kids.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm like, I love the idea of having more diversity in that space.
Okay, I want to phone a friend, which is the boys in the room. Do you walk around just being like, I want to impregnate people. It's part of my DNA.
Or like, do you ever want to be pregnant?
What a question.
No.
I just want to know what men feel about having kids. If you also think about it, if you're born with it, like, what's the deal?
Yeah.
Do you get asked about it with your parents or your friends? Like, do you talk about it in your friend setting?
Do you want to be dads?
And add your age, please.
We definitely get asked about it, I think, in relationships and in family settings. We don't talk about it as groups of guy friends. That almost never comes up, at least in my world.
Can you add context of how old you are?
I'm 36.
Okay.
Oh,
And
so you're a baby.
I have a lot of friends in New York that are either single or dating or in early relationships, because I think that's kind of where everybody that lives or moves or stays. And so a lot of us are having conversations about how do we contend with our age. It's a real thing, and kids are a part of that.
Yeah.
For sure. But usually, for me at least, it's in that context of aging. And what does it mean to be this age, and what decisions are you making, and timing, and those kinds of things?
It is funny to be in the bubble of New York with the age being like
Well,
adjusted.
there are biological clocks, which is so interesting. So because I'm dating somebody younger, I met with this fertility
Okay, but
doctor.
like how much younger?
4 years younger.
Oh.
But what she
Ian's
said,
3 years younger.
What she said was, it's good that you're with somebody younger because it's going to be much easier for you to get pregnant. Because the problem is when like older women are with older men because
The
men have
sperm
fertility
decline.
because men have fertility cliffs too. So like pro tip to y'all.
This will probably take too long, so I don't want to talk too much about it. But if like my male partner could give birth, I would have had children like 5 years ago. Like I truly, like I don't. The big hurdle to me is actually being pregnant and giving birth. And I know that everyone that has a baby is like, oh, that's the easiest part kind of thing. And I'm like, I don't disagree. I'm sure that it is relatively easy. The idea of like completely like sacrificing your body, both to yourself and also to like society sees you as a lesser, like as like two people.
Do you
or
have
like,
phobia of people coming up to you and just touching your stomach?
like kind of, but like also, I don't know. I just like, it like really gives me the ick.
Okay, in fairness, I have one friend, one of my best friends, and like literally you would say birth and she would cringe. Like it was like a visceral response where we're like, oh, like, and she's one of our more like, I would say like traditional friends. Like she always wanted to get married. She wants kids, but it was that piece that got her. But then she turned 36 and she was like, I guess I have to get over it. And so for me, I'm not like jazzed on the idea of being pregnant just because I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, wait, I have to do what? I can't eat this. Like, I can't, like, it's all of a sudden you have all these rules and then also a lot of judgment.
I gotta say,
hate being
I'm
told what to do.
No,
Yeah.
I'm really judgy about other dog parents. So I feel like I
the
would be
problem.
judgy. I
You're
am
the
the
problem.
problem.
You're part of the problem.
Because honestly, stop like pulling your dog along. Do you understand that if you let them sniff everything, that's how they become exhausted? It's not the actual walk itself. So anyway, I spend most of my days, at least on the weekends, telling people how to parent their dogs. That's number one. Number
You can never
two-
have children.
Number two, we did get a voice note about why should I care about other people's kids? So that's also interesting, which is like we get bombarded. I mean, okay, I send dog pictures, but like we get bombarded with also this need to care about kids, and we should all feel maternal enough to care about your kids or somebody's kids that.
I don't care about some
And that,
kids.
yeah, I get a lot. No offense to the friends listening, but like I do get a lot of Christmas cards with their kids, and I'm like, I don't even remember that you had kids or their names. I really appreciate this. Also, this is a waste of paper. It's a hot take. All right, let's pull this up.
I'm 38 at a now or never point if I want to have kids. And I think, what would Thanksgiving look like in 30 years? I wouldn't still want to be living the same life I do now. My sense of identity would be destroyed, but what is the life that I would want to have?
I have a lot of friends in their 50s who do not have kids. And let me tell you, they are just fine on Thanksgiving.
Because Thanksgiving, you can eat
Yeah.
whatever you want. You don't have to eat any of it.
Or you can also
Wait.
just go and hang out with your
Let's
other
unpack.
family.
Let's unpack the full question though,
There's
because
the second follow-up, which is why should I care about other people's kids? But let's unpack this one first.
let's unpack this one first. So, why should I have kids? I have this amazing sense of independence. Loves what she does in terms of work, and is between New York and France. All these different things. I mean, from my perspective, if you don't want to have kids, don't do it. Like it's doing it because what's happening right now is the fear of 30 years from now, but also 30 years from now, your kids could have abandoned you. Like
30
there's
years
no
from now, we might not
guarantee.
have a planet, so there's that.
Well, there's also no guarantee that
but
like
they'll even like
you're
you,
gonna that
which we'll go into
Yeah.
the second part of
that
this
you'll
discussion.
even like them. Or
Fair.
it's like there's a lot to unpack there, and it's like I think that fear is actually the worst mental state to actually make decisions because you make irrational decisions. And so 38 is a now or never time, but I will say that that, I have friends who've had kids when they're 42, 43. They did have to do things like IVF, which is extremely expensive. It's also incredibly taxing on the body. I don't think people talk about that. Success rates are a little bit all over the place. But I would say in that perspective, it does not sound like you want to have kids. It sounds like you're afraid about what it means if you don't.
Okay, but weirdly, I feel like the people who are this independent, myself included, the two of you included, we're the ones that probably would encourage our kids to not live anywhere close to us, to go do what they're going to do, and then you never see them. Because like we all live away from our parents, some of us pretty far away, right?
Different country.
Exactly. I think that's an interesting point around you're planning for the future, but the reality is we would be the people, especially New Yorkers, are like, go, fly, do whatever you want, live wherever you want, and then you don't see your kids. So I think that's really interesting, is this idea of like, she's probably going to have independent children anyway. Are they going to want to come celebrate Thanksgiving?
I think there's also, there's a stat that's been going around the internet recently, which I would love someone to fact check me on, but I think it's that 45% of women in like, I don't know if it's 2030 or 2040, are going to be single by choice, and that includes single mothers.
What year is this?
I think it's in the next like 15 years.
Okay, so
I've heard similar things.
And so I thought it was interesting. It's like both like people are. That included both people who are opting to not be married and not have kids, as well as people who opted to have kids and not be married.
Which is what maybe we should make the vibe last a lot longer to make sure they're all happy campers. No, I think the reality, that's a different story. The reality is, I think, isn't it also that women are less happy in marriage and it suits men better?
Women that are single live longer. Well, or that don't have children live longer, rather.
I mean, I think ultimately it's like the systems that we live in are set up to make women's lives miserable, raising children miserable and expensive, and there's very little incentive structure outside of your own personal will to have children. And this is just kind of a fact. I've like talked to so many. I actually posted something on my stories, and I was asking about, like, how do you feel about kids? Like, because Chapel Rowan made some like comment about like all of her friends being miserable parents and people lost their minds, and I was like, ultimately, like, I don't know anyone who hates their kids. Everyone hates the judgment of other parents, the expenses that they're being faced with, the pressure, the stress, the schooling system, the school shootings, the unvaccinations, it just keeps adding up. It's just so overwhelming that the only people who are having families or people who should be having families are the people who really, really want them, because ultimately there's like zero incentive structure. Whereas in the past, you kind of had to have a family as a woman because that was kind of the expectation socially, not only from society, but also from your husband, who was basically your keeper because he literally had all the money. And so you had absolutely no, choices. It's to me, I'm like, I get it. I get it. And it's like, ultimately, unless if you really want to do it and you understand it's a sacrifice, because I'm going into this knowing it's a sacrifice, and I'm okay with that. I'm like, that's okay. I'm willing to sacrifice shit for like 18 years, but it might also be forever.
Yeah.
Like because you don't know how your kid's going to turn out. Like, we're not doing eugenics here.
No, there's two things. One, there was
maybe your kid just likes living with you.
There's a viral
Maybe I'll love living
conversation.
with my kid.
Yeah.
Kick
What are you making for
Joel
dinner?
out.
That actually
Joel out.
does
Lasagna night
segue
with my
us
child,
nicely
and he's 37.
onto two other topics, but I do think there's two final points I'd like to leave our listeners with. One is
Emma,
the
you always
conversation.
round it out in such a great way.
The conversation around whether children are in fact a luxury item. So maybe people would like to think about that by themselves. I personally do agree that there is an element of like luxury for all of the reasons that we just discussed. And then the other is actually around, again, something that I may need fact checked, but I believe I wrote it in an essay at one point in the past 2 years, that there's a thought that being like maternal or feeling that way about wanting to give birth can actually be hereditary. And so there was a...
This explains my mother.
Well, there was a thing where it was
Great
saying,
aunt material.
There's a thing where it was basically suggesting, I'm paraphrasing, that throughout history there have been women who did not want children, but due to societal structures were forced to have children, and their children didn't want to have children. And now we're getting into a generation where it's acceptable to like action that and like actually choose to not have children. And so it's like a theory that like it could be that it's actually some people just truly aren't.
Maybe she's
meant
born
to.
with it.
Maybe she's born with
Is
it.
that what
Exactly.
Maybelline was about?
But then the fear, we could talk about this all day, but I'm like, and then who's left on the planet? I guess we'll all be dead. It won't matter. But
Yeah,
it's
it won't matter.
Okay, it's
Yeah,
Yeah, we didn't even talk about climate change. That's a heavy subject, but
well,
it's,
to be
it's
honest,
a fair
like
one.
I do
my
know someone
neighbors'
who's
kids,
stopped.
all they talk about is climate change.
Well, I know someone that's chosen not to have children just due to climate change, which I was like, huh.
yeah, because that kid won't be able
respect
to
that.
get insurance on their house.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the least of their worries.
Yeah.
But I think that this actually segues us nicely into the next topic, which is actually about like parent-child relationships. And I think that
Lots to unpack.
the next question we received is,
Hey, can I call you? Is it normal for moms to be jealous of their daughters?
and I think that that's obviously a very loaded topic.
But also so fascinating around what if the mom was in was pressured to have children and not go live their lives the way they wanted to, and this is actually a byproduct of the generation after them being able to do
Oh,
those things.
resentment.
Yeah.
Is it jealousy or is it a deep resentment that
think
you are
it's-
doing all of the things that they didn't do and therefore what you are doing and not following their path is a slap in the face because they made the sacrifice to have the children and why aren't you?
What's her name?
I'm just spitballing here, but yeah, no, it will raise issues internally.
I know.
I do
Unless
think,
if you're
but
talking
shut
to
up,
my
like,
grandmother, my grandmother's like, she's like, fuck those kids. My French grandmother, my Italian grandmother had like 8, so.
yeah, I think first of all, like the idea of like questioning whether it's normal. I think that whether it's something normal or whether something is common is like a sort of, it's not maybe the right question. I do think it's common. I think that it's very common for reasons like you just shared to not feel, I don't know, or to feel resentment towards a child, perhaps, even if you don't consciously acknowledge that you feel that way. And like, fair enough, like a lot of our mums, I think specifically in this generation, like did have to make sacrifices, the same as our like grandmothers did have to make a lot of sacrifices due to societal expectations, and maybe they now in like later in life are feeling like as though they missed out, and like it might not be due to the children specifically, but it is a reality. And so I'd say it probably, I don't know if it's like normal to feel that way as a mother, but I would say it's probably common that a lot of mothers do. And I would also question whether our generation who are choosing to have, if we do choose to have children and we're choosing to do it, say maybe later, when we've like fulfilled various ambitions and goals, whether there will be like less jealousy, and also like acknowledging that like a lot of people in the world, like we're in a bubble in New York where people are choosing to have
mega
children
privilege
later.
bubble.
Well, it's interesting because if you think about our parents' generation, so call it the Gen X generation, they were 1 foot in the traditional, structure of what the boomers created. And then these were also like teenagers in 60s, 70s, right? Like that was a time of a lot of disruption and change and all of this. And it was probably very exciting. But ultimately, they were inheriting a world that, unlike the 50s where you could afford a house, they were inheriting something that the 80s set off what we're basically dealing with today. So there was like an inequity, but you're also expected to do certain things and you can't necessarily afford them. You're supposed to be this educated generation. Women are now supposed to go to college, all of these things. But it wasn't necessarily a fair world then either. So I think it's all set up to feel resentment because you were awake enough to know that you should be able to have like these sort of like equal opportunity, but you're still living in a society that doesn't treat women in that way. And you have mothers and our grandmothers telling them that they needed to still kind of be women.
I think also there's something interesting around like the concept of jealousy between mothers and daughters as it pertains to beauty standards. And
you're dovetailing into a story I was going to tell.
Yeah. And so, Charlotte, I would love to tee that up for you.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Well, no, I think it's interesting because I was overweight as a kid. Like, I was sent to, like, camps to, like, lose weight, things like that. Like, it was a whole thing. And so...
You're a skinny little bird now.
In France, well, it depends on who you talk to in my family. But in France, it's... aging isn't a beauty standard as much as thinness is. Like, if you are thin, you are the pinnacle of validation. Like, you are validated very much. But if you have wrinkles, they're not like, oh, like she looks haggard. Like you don't really hear that. It's like, do you dress well? Are you thin? And so what's really interesting is that my mom was very, I would use the word vicious at times about my weight. Like I have very clear memories, and it led to like a lot of disordered eating, a lot of problems for me. Like it just like to this day, like I like can get weird about food, even though I love food. And so I saw pictures of my mom when she was a kid, and I was like, oh, she was overweight too. Like we were like little mirrors. Like we were like two little cute, like two little French crepes, just like walking around, enjoying life and food. And I just had a lot of empathy because I was like, oh, like she must have been like, can you imagine that? And like this, like I actually, how old is my mom? I'm like 70s, 60s, 70s France. Tortured. I'm like, you must have been tortured. There's like, I was like, I had like a smidge of what you had. And so I think that is also one thing is like, you just keep passing it on like a little bit less. So there's a little bit of improvement. But yeah, it was, when I saw that, like my jaw dropped and my grandmother grabbed the book from me because like I didn't know. I only found this out like 2 years ago.
Wow.
And I was like,
You did this.
what? I was like, qu'est-ce que c'est? Quoi? I was absolutely floored, but it actually made me like really feel a lot of affection towards my mom because I understood. I was like, oh, she just didn't want me tortured. Like she understands that society will torture you. And so to get me into shape, number one, she started. And then she also tried to get results because she just didn't want me in that space. It wasn't about her seeing me as like some like horrific little goblin. It was more that she was like, well, maybe a little bit of that. But it was more so that she was like, you will be treated like shit. And she was right. Because I had terrible grades, everybody called me lazy, and then I grew, like I got really tall, and I just stretched out, and all of a sudden, I'm not lazy anymore. All of a sudden, I'm getting better grades. Like I'm getting more attention from teachers. I'm getting all this extra support. So literally, if you look at my grades from middle school to high school, I literally was able to talk my way into getting into AP classes because I didn't have the grades. And I was like, oh, it definitely helped that I
Pretty
looked like
privileged.
that. Yes, I literally pretty privileged
So
my way into AP
interesting.
history.
But I do think a lot of
crazy.
I mean, not to well, I'll reference a movie that we all know, everyone's watched. Let's be honest. The Notebook, like the mom's
Death Becomes Her.
Yeah, Death Becomes Her, which is what
I
I look
actually
like at
stopped
the
watching
end of
that
the
movie
day.
I don't watch the ending. It's too sad.
Okay, well, in the Notebook, as you know, the mom is kind of hard on Allie because she doesn't want her to end up in the same place. And I think that's really often, probably more often than not, is where it starts. It's not because they're trying to be terrible. It's because they went through something themselves. I mean, similar, like my grandmother is, bless her, she's still alive. She's a tough cookie. And that's what my mom, that's kind of...
It's rooted in wanting to be happy and to not suffer. And I think that every generation's definition of that is going to shift slightly. And so who knows what I'm going to unleash on a child. Like I'm very self-aware about it. And I'm like, I'm probably going to just I'm not even going to see the kind of trauma I'm going to inflict.
The piece I never understand is why therapy is not part of your like care package when you're pregnant. I'm like, what? Like, why is every parent not forced to at least attend some like counseling,
couples therapy too?
Like couples therapy, like, and I understand like especially in America, maternal health care is truly astonishingly bad, in comparison to other countries. But also like
Black
it's a
maternal
huge
mortality
thing.
is like
It's like
4x
you're
worse.
just expected to like suddenly adapt to having a child with no help.
Support.
Here you go.
Yeah, like like how are you supposed to get better? Like it's just like doesn't make any sense to me.
No, and then I think it seems, again, from the outside, that people are trying to keep up with the communities that they're in ways that maybe aren't always healthy either. Like New York, like you're signing up your kid for college when they're 1. Like there's just, it's very interesting.
This was another question we got.
Is it normal for moms to treat their daughter different than their sons?
I talked about this with my mum actually recently.
Do you have a brother?
I don't. I have a sister, a younger sister.
Oh, well, I can take the lead on all of this then.
Well, I actually spoke to my mum about it because I have a few like friends I went to school with who have a brother and the daughter, and how their parents, who say my parents might be friends with them or like observed from a distance, treated the sons differently from, like they care more about the son's career, like even if they don't realize it themselves. And so I was
fascinating.
Yeah, and I was talking to my mum about it, and she was like, I don't know what we would have done, like because we've only ever had daughters, and like she's like, I'd like to think that we wouldn't, but you like how do you know, kind of thing.
Well,
So Eva,
I'll
what was
take
your
this one.
experience?
So first, my mom is
the
one
wheel.
of 4 girls, and then there's a brother, and it's definitely like the movie Our Idiot Brother. Like, love you, Lee, but all the girls are like our idiot brother. So there's a funny thing there because it's
a big mood.
It's actually simultaneously like lowered expectations for men. Therefore, you encourage them to be better, and also just expect them to be the inept ones. So I witnessed this with my own relationship with my mom and my little brother. Like, she doesn't put any pressure on him. She sort of thinks that I was always destined to be in the chair I'm in, and it was like, you didn't need my help, you would have been fine, even though my mom was a great mom. But with my brother, he gets away with everything. He's getting getting married on my birthday, and my mom didn't bat
Wait,
an
what?
eyelash about it. Yeah.
Why does he want to do that to you?
I guess it's like the second or first Saturday in August. I don't know, but
It's not about you, but
It's
it's
not
like
about-
it's still
It
also
is.
not in consideration.
And
It's
my
like
mom
not in-
didn't bat an eyelash.
Taking
about
personal
this.
offense on your behalf.
I know. It's in Montana. It'll be nice. I
Yeah.
love you, Diego, but like honestly, and there's a lot of other things there where it's just like he can get away with everything, and I've witnessed this. And I'm like, this is wild. But there is the eldest daughter syndrome, first of all, which I kind of am, even though I'm the eldest of my mom's children.
You're making me realize a dynamic with Joel because he's the only boy.
Well, that's a question next. Our next
it goes
question.
into the
And my
save
dad
that.
was one of 7 sons and a sister.
And where did he
God.
I
fall
need to
in
ask
the
my Aunt
lineup?
Lori.
But where did he fall in the lineup?
Middle.
That's a whole thing too. I think all of this is to say it's weird because on one hand it seems like men are getting more attention because they are deserving and or expected to be the better ones, but I actually
think
think
it's
the
that.
undertone is
Yeah.
that they're
Less capable.
less capable.
Yeah.
Which I kind of
'Cause moms
actually,
know.
because moms know.
As women operating in the world. I'm
One source
the
done.
youngest. I'm the youngest sister, so I got away with I got away with a lot.
Yeah, well,
I thought I
They
really
also
paved
thought I
the
was
way
gonna
for
be a
my
boy.
sister, and she really blew it out the water. She'll acknowledge that. I was like, I really tried to be naughty for you, and so you could get away with more. And
then-
she outdid me in every measure.
wild child.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that the reality is that parents do treat boys and girls quite differently, and I don't even know if I don't think they're doing.
I think
it
it's
on
an
purpose.
age thing too.
It's also
Like
an
they
age
still
thing.
call me the baby. Like I'm 38. This is weird. Like they have like when I was like, oh, I'm trying to I'm gonna start to have kids. My grandmother was like, but you're so young.
You want to hear something weird?
Like,
What
man.
about when I was about 33 and found out that there was a long lost sister?
Excuse me.
Yeah, no, 23andMe, RIP. That's what we.
Did you delete your data?
First of all, I did not do 23andMe.
My parents
First
won't
of
delete
I've
all.
their
always been
data.
obsessed with finding stories
No,
like this.
This is a true story. My cousin did 23andMe because he didn't really know his dad. Gets contacted by this woman, Sarah, and Sarah's like, I've been looking for my dad. And listen, Reggie was a wild child in the 70s. Like he probably has other children. And Sarah
23andMe knows.
And Sarah contacted us, and I have an older sister. But the funniest part, the reason I brought this up, was because she was raised as the youngest girl, and then finds out she has a younger sister. I'm raised as the oldest girl, and then her and I, which we don't really talk, we don't really know each other, but it was a very funny dynamic to be like,
Everything's made up.
everything's made up.
Yeah.
And I was like, to be honest, this is so exciting. You can spend the rest of your life dealing with dad. Like, you can have him. It was great. I was like, you can talk to him for the rest of your life. He's a pain in the ass. Like,
Yeah,
good
you're like,
for
oh,
you.
you have this.
But yes, I was like, no, I'm the oldest. This is where I'm coming.
You're the
I
eldest.
do think
eldest
everything
boy.
we're saying currently is like an interesting perspective on our first question, where we're talking about like the struggles between like siblings, between parents and children, and then like the question of like, what if in 30 years I'm worried about like what's Thanksgiving gonna look like, to quote our
I mean,
listener.
what's
But,
the,
like,
how often do you see your parents?
I actually see them quite a lot. I fly back like every 2
True.
months.
Okay, that's not the. How often do you see your parents? And don't go into why we don't see them, but I would say arguably it's like
I love
few
hanging out with
times
my
a year.
parents.
Yeah.
yeah,
Sure.
if that.
Yeah.
So that's the point. I think you have these kids and you
Yeah.
don't see them.
Yeah.
But I think that that's another thing. Trying to have children, my goal isn't these kids are going to fulfill me for the rest of my life. They're going to take care of me. They're going to do this. That's not why I'm having kids.
Why are
I'm
you
not
having kids,
I'm
then?
not Because I want to have a family.
I
and
know.
like if we have a good relationship, then yes, we'll hang out together. But if we're not gonna have a good relationship, I'm not gonna like what am I gonna do? Like move to Florida, get a gun and then force them? Like no, like we're not doing that. But I'm saying you can't have children and then like just like guarantee like how they're gonna turn out. Like, you know, they could like there's like so I don't know. I am like also like I have a lot of anxiety, so I immediately think about the worst case scenario. And so I don't know. I'm having kids because I want to have a family.
But I think that's amazing that you think of the worst case and still want them because that says something about like actually the desire to want them. Is
I want
amazing.
one.
No, it's amazing.
I mean, Joel and I are having conversations about 1 or 2 because 1 to me is extremely manageable. 2 is when you're starting to get outnumbered, and I don't like that. I don't like those numbers. It gives me a lot of stress.
Someone said to me like, "Oh, have 3. It gets a little bit less, a little bit messy," and I was like, "Why do I want messy?"
My sister has 4. It's absolutely like it's absolute chaos, and like anyone who has 4 kids, it's like I'm so impressed.
I
always.
just hate the fact that your car choices get really slim once you have more than
That's
2
the
or
most
3.
important consideration.
First
What
of all,
car
I'm
can
not
you
driving
buy?
that goddamn minivan.
I don't drive.
Sorry.
No,
No,
it's
exactly.
not
I don't drive
Mm-mm.
generally.
No offense to minivans.
I'm like I think it's a bad idea to have kids and be like, oh, they're gonna be around later. Like not people die. Number 1.
To take it there.
No, but seriously, people die.
If we're gonna be
people,
realistic
people
today.
might move. Like literally, you might hate each other. Like there's just like so many like people become drug addicts. I'm just like
No, this is
I
actually a
just
course at Stanford.
I
It's all about like
just
life and meaning.
Don't. I'm like
Which
that's
is probably
not-
going to be canceled as soon as their funding gets pulled. Let's be
Yeah,
honest.
but
So-
it's
But it
all-
also
about
feels like
that.
a factory line. Like it's like a factory line to produce an individual that's then going to you're producing labor. Like that doesn't make sense to me. Or you're producing somebody who's going to become your caretaker. That's
But I
a
think
job
that-
they didn't ask for.
I think that is actually like one thing
that's
that
a literal job.
it is a job.
No, but I'm really fascinated by like why pregnancy and like becoming a mother isn't actually more financially incentivized because like you are like
Most
from
of
the,
it's surrogacy, and then it gets super dark.
But it's more like you are producing the next generation of people who are going to continue the economy. So why are you not viewing it as a long-term investment in like the economy? Because
I know.
it is.
I should.
But what if you're just
well, that's
like
what child
a
tax
dink
credits
in
are, which they're
Brooklyn
getting rid
who
of.
doesn't
Yeah.
believe in anything. I'm like, why have kids? I don't believe in God. I don't. So
Yeah.
I don't know. And I gotta talk.
I feel
to
like
some
we could
atheists
talk about
why
this
they
for
have
like
kids.
5 hours, but I
You
want
don't
to
need
ask
to
you
have
both.
kids. That's the thing. It's like not everybody wants kids. And I think that's also just
I know.
like
I
the
just think
reality.
about when I'm like the future, blah blah blah. This whole thing.
Yeah. But you know what? People thought that during the bubonic plague. And here we are.
We know from personal first-hand accounts.
Like,
that they
not
said
a
that.
great-
5, you'll end up with one. It's like statistically.
famously a bad time. A third of people died.
Yeah.
And then, like, look, an asteroid
Also
hits the Earth.
COVID.
Whatever bugs were left over, they
Listen,
carried on.
Also,
it's just
RFK,
life.
we could be there in 2 years.
Yeah.
So take this into account. The bubonic plague may come back.
Before we get
Literally.
too deep
Maybe
on
you should have
historical
7.
diseases,
You end up with 2.
If I'm lucky.
no, we're going to before we get too deep on the bubonic plague, we are going to be talking about my final
soon?
question for you today. Too soon, yeah, too soon for this morning.
What should you do if you're in a relationship with a mommy's boy?
Oh, girl, well, he's a mommy's boy who doesn't want to be one.
Can we
Oh,
take
that's
it to the
even
next
worse.
level.
Okay, I actually don't know if I'm with the mummy's boy, so can you just... Okay, and I don't know
Can we
why
d-
we've
should we
all
diagnose
adopted...
you?
I owe this to my
Why-
mother-in-law. Marcy, I'm coming for you.
I don't know why we're all saying mummy like we're English. Mommy. I'm mummy's boy. I'm
I'm
a
mummy's boy.
red-blooded
Marcy.
American.
Let's
Wait,
talk
okay,
about
wait.
this.
What? Can you tell me? Because I actually...
Okay, tell us the signs. If you're thinking about
The thing
it,
is,
it
like,
may be the
Is it a
one.
reciprocal
Okay,
mommy's
can I
boy
just
or
have a little
just-
disclaimer, though? I think I'm more obsessed with his mom than he is.
Yes, that's
Okay,
what I'm
that's
saying.
fine. That's
There are
still
some
fine.
mommy's
I
boys
think
who like the
she's
mom
just-
loves the
I
boy,
don't think
but the
it's
boy-
necessarily a bad thing.
I think
for the
she's
record.
just so great that, like, and I'm not just saying this in the hopes that she listens to this, but, like, the first time I met her, I was like, oh, this is annoying.
This is the marketing
Well, because
clip
I
for the
actually have
podcast.
one ex who whatever, but, like, I still think about his mom.
Just call her out.
And I'm gonna give it away. I'm gonna give it away. She made a sticky toffee pudding that was so good, but also she was like hilarious. She was funny. She literally had
Why
like
can't
gone
you still
through
be
so
her friend?
much. Well, I'm just like I'm gonna set a boundary. Like I'm just like I'm not because like I know she would still be my friend, but I was like I'm not gonna do that because I was like I don't want to. Also, I'm like I really want to stay far away from this man. But like literally once he saw me, like I saw him once in Brooklyn and I never see my exes. He ducked.
Oh no.
I was on the phone with the New York Times like for an interview, and like I wouldn't have been able to stop and talk to you anyways. And I see him, we lock eyes, and he just ducks and then like kind of like military crawls to the elevator. I was like, wow, we really ended things off on a great
You're
note.
like, tell
Do you think
Mary I
that's a
said
result
hello.
of him being a mummy's boy, or do you think that's a separate issue?
I actually don't know. For him, if he was I think he was. No, actually, I'm not going to go into his airing his laundry because he did some stuff that was really weird. Anyways, but moving back to Joel and to Sunny, his mom. She is incredible. And so I understand being obsessed with her, but he is the only boy in a five sisters. And he's
But
the
that's
only
like
boy.
the ultimate. You want to date a
But it is very
man
much
with
so like
3
Joel can do no
sisters.
Joel
do
can
not
do
want
no
to date
wrong.
Lee. I just keep calling out my entire family in this show, and it's fine. I'm already the black sheep who says what I'm not supposed to say, so we're good.
But I feel like there's always one sibling in the group that everyone's like, oh, they can do no wrong. They're the golden child.
Yeah. Is that Joel?
Depends on who you talk to in his family, because some of his family's like, he does stuff wrong.
The signs of no, I think it can go in 2 directions. One, they like really do latch on to being the mummy's boy, and then because I have lots of friends who are in
What is a mummy's boy?
I don't know why we're saying mummy.
We're back.
I've influenced.
Okay, a mama's boy. I think the signs are like, is their relationship with their mom, do they talk to them all the time? Is that the person that they want like you to be? Is this person sort of the ghost in the room?
I hope so,
One.
because she's
Amazing.
kind of a badass.
But I think there's also, it can go in a couple directions. I think sometimes, like Ian is a mama's boy who doesn't want to be one. Doesn't talk to his mom now, very frequently. I'm going to get in so much trouble.
I know, I'm like, what am I allowed to say?
But his mom like had so many expectations on who he was going to be, and because we got together so young, she was like, this woman's derailing his life. She also had him quite young, and so I think he represented like what she could have done. She isn't a lawyer. She's fine. She is great. She's retired early. She'll be okay. But it was very much like his mom was like, just as a reminder, I'm here.
I think that's actually
And
the
that's
problem of
the
this
issue.
question.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like it's less about like, does your partner have a close relationship with their mother? I think it's actually good if they have a good relationship with another woman and they're dating women. I think it's when the
Ideally, you have a good relationship with all women, but
All
it's like if
women.
you only have a good relationship with your
As
mother,
long as-
that's a red flag.
So also
Yes.
the mom having an opinion on a relationship that is not, at some point it becomes like an inappropriate opinion. Like this
Okay,
has
so I
gone on
have
too far.
an anecdote from a friend who has a pretty bad relationship with her in-laws. And
Marcy hated me up
due
until I started mod, and then I sent her
a vibrator.
product, and now she loves me. But we
So
can
you
go
sent
into that another
your
day.
mother-in-law
Would you like that
vibrators
cut as
and she
well?
loves you.
She basically was like, I think you're a good person now because you're fighting for women's equality. And I was like, I always was going to do something with my life, but you're
Okay, well,
welcome.
hear me out on this quote.
Enjoy the vibrator.
Yeah.
Love that.
She won't listen
Send
to
all
this.
your mother-in-laws a vibrator.
Sorry, I'll say it to her face. I'm sorry.
Basically, she had the line that honestly I only thought happened in movies, where it had been a while. She was like, okay, I just like maybe I've done something. I need to apologize. Like whatever. I'm gonna like go for coffee. I'm gonna try and like make this a normal relationship. And the mother basically is like, so I know that you might see me as the competition.
Ew.
Yes.
Ew.
And so
EW.
and like so I think that type of situation is actually the problem.
What do you mean the
a mummy-
competition?
Exactly.
Can you get more context here? Like, what
It's
do you
giving
mean?
Greek mythology.
Well, I think that's actually what the sort of concept of like the problem when you're going into a relationship with, say, a mummy's boy, is either they have been so cared for that they don't know how to look after themselves. and
That's
expect
true
their
in a lot of
partner to.
cases, for sure.
Or they like have this weird dynamic that then leads to you as a partner having a negative experience with
And
your
are being
in-laws.
secondary.
Okay,
And
so yeah,
being-
Joel's not
yeah.
a mama's boy at all. Like, if anything, I'm actually like trying to get her to move to New York for when we have this kid.
You're trying
and
to be
I
the
was like,
mama's
I'll
boy.
build an apartment for you somewhere. Just come on down.
Come
Come
down.
hang.
No, mine
so
is like
I guess
there was an
I'm
opinion that was
I'm a
over
mother-in-law's
serious.
girl. Is actually what I am.
This is not what you're facing.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the one that's actually the problem. I'm
You're
like
forcing the
No, and
the
I have-
issue.
I
they're like, we're gonna retire. I'm like, to New York.
next door. No, I think that is true. That I have friends who the mom has just been involved in ways that are totally inappropriate. The guy could not make like a decision without his mom's opinion. It just was this.
Oh, that's no.
Yeah.
I'm not dealing with that.
But that happens a lot.
Well, do you remember in Sex and the City when Charlotte dates Trey or marries Trey and the mother, that's a mummy's boy.
Oh, thank you for the context. Oh, yeah, no, I would have.
Horrifying, no?
Oh, yeah, no, that would
Where
have
she's
either
like
ended in
choosing their marital
murder.
bed
Kitty.
together.
Wasn't her name Kitty?
Something like that.
Yeah.
No, that would have ended
What
for
was
me
it?
in murder, or I would just had to
Bunny.
abandoned.
Bunny.
Oh,
I knew
God.
it was an animal.
Yeah. But yeah, I would say in conclusion to this listener, what do you do if you're in a relationship with a mummy's boy? I think
Get out
that-
of there.
I don't think you need to get out of there. You need to get your partner on the same page. If you're not on the same page about the relationship and the way that this mother shows up in your relationship, and like they don't defend, your partner doesn't defend you
Yes.
and doesn't defend your like relationship as its own freestanding family, then you have a problem.
If your partner sees you as competition, run.
Or if the mother sees you as competition.
I think in Ian's case, like his mom, he went to boarding school, so he left early. He almost like passed on his frustration with his mom to me, where he's like, I don't want to deal with her. She's giving you a hard time. And I was like, I have my own parents. I don't want this. So it's not totally a mama's boy situation, but it's certainly like I'm not going to put a line there because I don't want to deal with her. And I'm like,
Basically,
that's
it's all
not
about
okay.
boundaries.
It's all about boundaries. And now that we're in our 40s, I think we're like, go away. We don't need to talk to anyone. But I would say for this person, she has to create those boundaries early because they can haunt you for a long time.
Yeah, especially if you then choose
really
to
long
have
And you might
children
become that McKinsey statistic.
of being single.
Yes, if you don't address this. But it's like one of those things where it's like, if this
Yeah, but
mother...
didn't we conclude that being single is the best thing ever for women and we support it?
Yeah, because they live longer. So we
Stay
can rule the
single.
world. I've learned a lot from both of you, and I hope
Families
our
are,
listeners...
families are complicated. In conclusion.
In conclusion,
if you
people
choose
could
to have children...
And if people had kids during the bubonic plague, you can have them now too, but you also don't have to do it.
Yeah.
That's our conclusion.